Happy Friday, makers! It's Michele here from the Creation Station, and we are doing our Facebook Live for Friday, March 27th. How's everyone doing? Doing okay? Well, today, what we're going to do is we are going to be working on special effects painting today. And the type of special effects that we're doing is more focused for props and hobbies and stuff like that. What we're going to do today is I have a droid from the Disneyland Galaxy's Edge, and what we're going to do is we're going to make it from looking brand new, fresh out of the factory, to kind of looking like it's been on planet for quite a long time. So I'm going to show you some techniques that I do, a little bit about me. So if you don't already know, I like to do what's called cosplay, where we go to conventions and dress up in characters. And in doing so, I make my own props for my characters and stuff like that. And what you see here on my iPad in front is a prop that I made for one of my most recent cosplays. One of my favorite movie villains of all time was Annie Wilkes from Stephen King's Misery the movie. And so back in October, there was a cosplay contest in Darkside and Riverside. And I entered as Annie Wilkes, and I made my own sledgehammer from that infamous hobbling scene. So what I did was I 3D printed the hammer, and after it was all assembled together, I did what's called a primer coat, where I painted the whole thing white to give it a nice solid base. And then I spray painted it with a brown paint for the handle and a silver metallic, almost hammered metal looking paint on the top to kind of give it that realistic effect. Let me see here. Just got the light in the way a little bit. So with the silver paint, it kind of looked like it was still brand new sledgehammer, and with special effects painting, you kind of want to take into account like what would an object look in real life. So I had to think, well, this sledgehammer's probably been sitting in a basement for a few years, probably a little bit grimy, have some what's called oxidation happening, where there's a chemical change with the metal. So I had to think about that. So with my painting, I went in with acrylic paint and started mixing colors, sort of, and making sure that it kind of looked like it had been sitting on its head for a while. So this is the head of the hammer here. So if you look, it's kind of lighter on the top here, but darker. That's because when I was imagining where this hammer was being stored, it was being stored with the head on the floor. And so with that, it's going to build up grime and dirt, and it's going to make it look kind of aged. You'll also see here that with the painting of the handle, I also added some details where it would be dark, and like a lot of grease and dirt would build up where the metal meets the wood. I do have a regular sledgehammer in my garage, so I kind of just looked at that for a few minutes and just be taking some notes of how it looks and how I would want a real sledgehammer to look. So it took a few days to kind of get the coats going. I did do all the brushing to make it look like wood here, but my main focus was trying to make the metal look like it was, or the head make it look like it was real metal. So I had to break down the different colors. Like there's greens, there's reds, there's browns, there's blacks. There's a whole bunch of different colors that I had to kind of investigate. And this is what the end result looked like at the when it was all over and painted. And so you can kind of see it looks like it's a little bit dirty. It's got dings in it where it might have hit something and took off some of the metal. So at the end, it kind of turned out really cool. It was a really nice result. So what we're going to do today, though, is we're going to try and make, like I said, a droid look more realistic. So in order to do that, what we need to do is we kind of need to look at some reference photos. So I have a few up here. I have one R2-D2, one of the most famous droids of all of time. And you can see, like, this is R2-D2. He's been around for a few generations. He's kind of beat up, worn down. So you want to take note, like, he's got some corrosion happening here, and that's just a chemical reaction with the elements and metals. So it probably has some, like, battery acid leaking. It's got this rusty look here. He's probably been in areas where there's, like, salt water can affect metal. So you want to take in account the types of weather and conditions that a droid would be. So we're going to use that as a reference point. We also have some reference points for darker droids, like the mouse droids. And then these are just examples of what people have done to weather up their own droids at home. But it's always good to kind of look and see, okay, in the black areas, it kind of looks like it's worn down. It's been aged, working hard. You see scuff marks. So we're going to take all of those into account, and we're going to work on our own today. All right, so I'm just going to put this off to the side here, and I'm going to take my droid. Now this is the droid that I built at the Galaxy's Edge Droid Depot. This is my R1 M3, and it was custom built, so I got to choose all the parts to it, but today we're going to just be working on his leg over here, so we need to take his leg off in order to work on him today. So I'm just going to unscrew that. A little bit more. Alright. So we're just going to be working on that. I'm going to set the rest of his body aside. And I'll be working on him through most of this time off that we have from the creation station. Alright. So, we got our leg, now it's time to start painting. Now if you look, there's a lot of parts in here, a lot of what I call crevices, where stuff and gunk can be built up. So what I want to try to do is kind of recreate what I saw in the R2-D2 photo. So right now it's a little bit too white, too bright white for my liking, so I kind of want to age this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and grab my paints. I have my tub of paints. And just as a little note, this is how I like to store my paints. I like to keep them upside down. That way the paint is always in the exit here. It also makes it easier to see what color. I mean, you could swatch the top with the color that your paint is, but this just gives you a quick idea of what you have available. So for today, what we're going to do is we're going to use some terracotta. I'm going to use a little bit of this. Actually, I don't like that one. I'm going to go with this, just brown. That is, brown is the name. And I'm probably going to do a little bit of this golden brown and yellow. And I have this custom yellow that I made. If you've ever been to the creation station and you've seen our cat bus box, this is the custom yellow that I created for it. So I'm going to use those colors today to give us this corrosive effect on the leg. Alright, so now that we have our colors, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of give our leg a little bit of a wash. Excuse me. And actually, I might throw in a little bit of this tan too. I think I might do a wash with the tan and a little bit of the yellow. So I'm just going to give it a quick shake. I'm going to throw a little bit of this tan in here in my little palette. Move that over to the side. And a little bit of this custom yellow that I made. Just a tiny bit. Alright, so once I have that, what I need to do is I need to dilute this. And in order to dilute it, I'm going to use this. This is a syringe that's used for glue. If you go to the hobby aisle, it has this little end here. It's not a needle, it's cut off so it's blunt. But I like to use this to help make sure that I don't spill any of my water, because if I pour it, it gets all over the place. So we're just going to fill this up with a little bit of water, and then we're just going to add a few drops in here and set that off to the side. And I'm going to take my big fluffy brush here, and I'm just going to mix that water with the paint and kind of dilute it down. Alright. Okay, so I got it nice and diluted, and while we wait on that, I'm going to put on some gloves because I really don't want to get too messy on my hands. They're already pretty dry from washing them regularly, so I'm going to try and avoid making too much of a mess on my hands. So I'm going to put on my gloves, and I have a paper towel because we're not going to leave the paint on here. We're actually going to let it sit for a little bit to dry and then wipe off the excess. And that's an important thing, is to have a paper towel handy when you're weathering, because you are going to be doing a lot of wiping off. Alright, so I need a little bit more water. It's a little bit too thick, so I'm going to add a little bit more in there. Alright, and I do make a little bit of a mess, but that's okay. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're just going to do a quick coat here. I'm going to age this up to make it look like it hasn't been directly from the factory. It's been out on planet for a while, so we're just aging it up. We're kind of making it have like a little beige-ish color to it, like it's been in the dunes of Tatooine. Alright. So that's good. And you just want to be quick about it. It doesn't have to be perfect for this, because, you know, weathering is kind of it happens organically. So once you have like a quick coat, I'm just going to dab a little bit of it off. I'm just going to rip this paper towel here. And we're just going to dab it. You can also use a sponge for weathering. I usually have sponges, but I haven't been able to get one. You could probably even cut up like a beauty sponge if you have one of those. Those usually work. But you can see now we're kind of getting it a little bit not as bright white. It's kind of got like a little bit of a, like it's been in the dust, been in the dirt kind of tinge to it. And we're just going to add a little bit more to the side. You want to make sure that you get nice and into those cracks that are in the droid. I want to cover that all up there. So I've been cosplaying for about 5 years. I've done lots of different things. One of my most fun outfits was I was Audrey from Little Shop of Horrors. And I had made my own Audrey 2 plant. And actually it's one of the the most fun and task-taking things I've ever made. I actually had to sculpt that entire thing and then hand paint it, and I had to take some images of what like a Venus flytrap looks like and what the plant in the movie looked like, because that was kind of what it was basing off my whole cosplay off of, was the movie characters, not necessarily the play, but the movie ones. But it was really fun. I actually got to meet some of the producers who worked on that movie, and probably the biggest highlight was I actually was in line for a panel, and Anna Gasteyer, who happened to be in that musical on Broadway, happened to see me, and she wanted a picture with my Audrey too, and that was probably the biggest highlight of the time, was her being really impressed. She wanted a picture with it. So that was a lot of fun. Alright, so we're just getting into the little bits and pieces in here, and actually I'm going to pop this out. This little piece comes right out here, so I can get in there and these little pieces here. And I'll paint all this part in here too, just in case I wanted to take off that little side panel piece in the future. Alright, this is looking really good. It's looking kind of old. Alright, and as you notice, there's some little ridges right in here. I'll give this a little closer look for you to see. Yeah. So you can see there's some ridges right here, and that's where paint's going to kind of accumulate and kind of build up, which is what dirt normally does. It accumulates. So if you don't get all the paint out of there, that's going to be fine. It's just going to give it more like this droid hasn't been cleaned or maintained in a while, so it's okay to have that on there. And we're just being kind of rough. We're just going through here. Don't have to make it perfect. Alright, looking good. Now, you want to be very careful with these droids. This does have a little component where you can attach electrical instruments, so I want to try and avoid getting paint in that area, but I am going to go around it. So I'm going to get some paint in there just to make it look a little bit older. Alright. So that's looking pretty good. Do more on the side there. I'm going to do on this side. I want to make sure we get all areas that are going to be seen when we reattach this to our droid. So when you're all done painting, you might worry like, oh, the paint's going to come off and everything like that. A good thing to remember is to always use a sealer on your paint when you're all done. That helps prevent it from chipping off and cracking. Depending on the type of effect you're looking for, you could use a gloss, a semi-gloss. For me, what I will be using on this droid is more of a matte finish because I don't want it to look like it's a shiny, dirty droid because that's just going to look weird. You're going to want to make it look like it's gotten some use. It's gone some miles. And if it's shiny and dirty, that's going to look a little bit unusual. So for this, I would recommend using a matte sealer. Alright. So this part takes pretty quick, just doing the first coat on here. And if you want, you can do more coats. You can make it look really dirty. You can make it look ancient, like it's been stuck in the back room of a cantina for a while, like someone lost it. You can do all sorts of stuff for it. This one, I want to make it look like it's an everyday droid. It's been working. It's seen some stuff, but it's not forgotten. So, all right. We're almost there on the first coat of it. I'm liking this. It's looking really good. I'm going to turn off a light. It might be a little bit hard to see. Alright. So that's how we're at so far. I'm going to leave this part blank for right now because I want to focus more time on this. And then when I'm done with the top part, then I'll work on here. Just because I don't want to wipe off anything that I'm going to be working on that's still wet. I want to make sure I have some place to hold on to. Alright, so now that we have that part done, I'm going to go back to my picture of R2. I'm going to look at his base here. Okay, so it looks like we have some corrosion that usually happens in here. We're going to have some corrosion coming out of where the screw is at. Definitely in these little pocket areas here. So we're going to work on putting some details there. So for that, I'm going to use this terracotta color as my base color. So I'm going to go ahead and pour a little bit into my palette. And then I'm going to have some of this custom yellow as its own little pair right here. And then I'm going to go in with this golden brown, which has got a little bit of a red tint to it. A little bit of yellow red. I'm going to put some of that in there too. Alright. Now I am going to dilute these. You can leave them at as they are, but I like to make mine a little bit watery just because it makes it easier to kind of wipe off. Alright, so I'm going to take a little bit of a smaller brush here. I'm going to dip it in some water and make sure it's got a nice point on it. And then I'm going to just mix up some of this stuff here. Alright. So I'm just going to keep looking at my examples here. I'm going to find a better one that I can see the up close on the leg. Alright, so I got a little bit of a better detail here. Alright, so I'm going to go in. I'm just going to kind of make it look like there's been some corrosion, like some stuff's kind of leaked out. Maybe he's been in a saltwater planet. Alright. Now, it looks a little bit too orange right now, but you're going to be doing layers upon layers of stuff, and that's going to get darker. Well, I'll probably also add some of that dark brown to it. But I'm just going to mop that up. Yeah, we'll add some brown. Oops. Alright, add some water. And I'm just going to work on my reds for right now, because I want to make sure I have that kind of all in place before I start mixing colors. And I'm just going to leave like a little drippiness coming out of this one here. Yeah, I want to make it look like it's standing like that so stuff's dripped. I'm going to go around the edges here. Just getting it in the little areas. And then I want to put some in here. Get some of that. Alright, it's looking good. Now, you could probably also use a Q-tip too. I don't have any in here right now, but I think I like how it's looking so far that I don't really need one. But you can use a Q-tip to kind of mop up areas that are a little bit hard to reach into, or you can use a dry brush as well. So I'm going to add some more. Just kind of look at here, and I'm going to have some coming at the side right here. Yeah. And this is just a base coat. I'll probably go in with a non-diluted section and or non-diluted paint, and might make it a little bit darker in certain areas, and I'll take a finer pointed brush. I have lots of different brush sizes to get into small spaces and stuff like that. A little bit in that little crevice right there. Alright. And now this part's not going to be usually seen, but in case, like I said, if I pop it off, I'm going to add some corrosion down here. Maybe a little bit here. Don't really have, unless you're copying a droid from the movie, you really don't have to be completely perfect or symmetrical with your corrosion, because if you look at, like go look in your garage at like a tool that's been sitting there for a while, or something old in your garage that's just been there. It's not going to be a perfect circle or a perfect shape usually that shows up. You're going to have spots and splashes in certain areas, so it's not going to be 100% perfect. Alright, so we did that color. We did that, was it the terracotta color? Now I'm going to go in with a little bit of the yellow color, this custom color. Now it's the combinations of a light orange and some brown, and then like a daffodil yellow was in there too, I think. And we're just going to go kind of like in these little areas. We're not going to paint over the exact thing, but we're just going to kind of go into certain areas that we painted. And I was going to kind of give it a layered effect, like maybe it's the newest corrosion that's on top of there. But, yeah. So I'll give it a little bit closer look. So you can see it's got some areas right here that the red's showing through, and I'm just going a little bit over with the yellow. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're just creating the effect that it's a real droid. Get in there. And it's okay to get it on some of the metal the parts that look like they're supposed to be metal, because that's what happens. I'm just gonna, maybe I want to add a little bit more of this newer corrosion here. I'm just gonna take that, mop it. And it's okay if you get some of the corrosion on your paper towel and it gets somewhere else, because it's just going to look like it's worn. Alright, so we have a good base here. I'm going to go in now, and I'm going to use the one that I used my yellow with. I'm going to get some brown in there. Brown. I'm going to make it a little bit darker in some areas. And for this one, I'm going to mop it pretty quickly. I don't want it to sit too long. I just want to kind of give it a little bit of that brown in there. And this one I'm going to do close to just really small sections. You don't want to overpower your paint job. You just want to do a little bit. Because when you use like the sponge technique with your towel or your sponge, it's going to move that color around anyways. So, but it gives it kind of a muddy look to it, which is good. Old, forgotten, muddy look. And I like this little metal bar here, so I'm going to do some darker brown in here, a lot of it, because I want it to really look like all the dirt and dust got stuck in there. I'm going to put some brown in here. And definitely around the metal gears, metal parts. Yeah. But yeah, it's going to take some time going back and forth between colors. You're going to layer it up. But you just want to make sure that when you're weathering, you don't want to miss a lot of spots. Especially like I have a little spot right here that I missed with my light tan color. So I got to go over that again. But all it is pretty much putting layers on top of layers and wiping things away. But just take your time. If you definitely use reference pictures, they're going to be very handy. And in fact, you can go back over. I'm just going to go back over some areas with the tan, and it kind of actually blends that red and orange color really nicely. But yeah, you can take. I don't know if you remember what it looked like before, but it was completely white. But now this looks like it's probably about a few decades old, been sitting out there. But yeah, so that's just one example of weathering. You can also paint stuff on there and use sandpaper to scrape it off and make it look like it's run into things. Or you can even take an X-Acto blade and scrape off some of the paint. There's a lot of different techniques out there. Later this week, we will be posting a blog on special effects painting, the how-tos, what to buy, recommendations that we use. So if you're not already following us, head on over to LQ Creation Station at .blogspot.com. Again, that's lqcreationstation.blogspot.com. And we're posting a whole bunch of different stuff on there. Ronnie's mass tutorial, she has written up and posted on there. We're posting where to buy filament for 3D printing, laser cutting, a whole host of different things. So definitely be following us on there. And we'll be bringing some more Facebook live videos or MakerCraft live videos next week. So definitely stay tuned for that. I will probably be posting a picture of my droid in a couple weeks, because this was a project I had been planning to do for a while. So definitely follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter to see how the progress is going. If you have any questions, comment below. We'll definitely be answering them. And I hope you guys are doing well and staying safe. All right, we'll see you next week. Bye.